All right, guys, moving right along to the White House Correspondents Dinner. I wanted to go over some surface level facts, introduce you guys to, what happened, go over some of the conspiracies, and then give you my take on what happened that night. I'm sure you've come across a bunch of content on YouTube and social media about the White House Correspondents Dinner, because on the surface, I think this one really struck a nerve for most people. Just about everyone I've talked to in my personal life has some theory on the case for what happened that night. So let's dive into it. So on April 26th, 2026, 12 days ago, the White House Correspondents' Dinner happened at the Washington Hilton Hotel. And this is the first one that Donald Trump has ever attended in his first term or his second term. And there were a large number of cabinet officials that were going to be there at the dinner. Already we're in kind of fishy territory because it's like, the one time that Trump shows up is the one time that there's a shooting at the event. Shots first ring out around 8:30 p.m. toward the end of the first course. Secret Service comes bolting into the room to start protecting cabinet officials and Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. And the suspect, Cole Thomas Allen, is nullified and detained just past the perimeter. In a few puzzling clips that have made the rounds on social media, we clearly see that Vice President J.D. Vance was escorted off the stage before President Donald Trump, which almost made it look like Trump and the Secret Service agents around him specifically already knew what was going on. And you also have that lack of reaction from Trump himself, who was being entertained by a magic trick by Oz Perlman, who was the show headliner for that night. So right after the shots ring out, the cabinet, including Trump, is escorted from the Hilton Hotel. Trump himself is escorted right back to the White House. And all of this is happening while Kash Patel's girlfriend is holding hands with another guy in a storage closet. Directly after, Trump is on Truth Social sending out truths about continuing the event if the police allow it. But at some point, the night turns into a White House press conference at 10 o'clock p.m. Reporters gather where Trump talks about unity and the need for a ballroom. The suspect of the almost shooting, 31-year-old Cole Thomas Allen, checked into room 10237 48 hours prior to the White House Correspondents' Dinner itself. And this is the main reason that he was able to sneak past security, get past the perimeter, and why we see him on other clips making the rounds on social media, bolting out of that hallway with the gun. He was already inside the building, staying there. Cole Allen was a teacher in Torrance, California, which is near Los Angeles. And he had a bachelor's in medical engineering from the California Institute of Technology. And other than the apparent bad treatment of Cole Allen in the correctional system itself, we know little else about the suspect or the motives behind this event. So in most people's eyes, there's two suspects for what went down at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And that's been the ballroom and, like most things, Israel. So now I want to quote an article that I link in the show notes below. And this talks about the things that you have to believe to get behind the official story of the White House Correspondents' Dinner, that Cole Allen really is this, potential shooter that's acting on his own. So to believe that the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting was real, you have to believe the following. A man can waltz into a hotel with a shotgun and ammunition and other weapons a day before the president and 2/3 of the line of succession are known to be coming to dinner. The man can sprint past Secret Service-controlled magnetometers before he is stopped. Multiple shots are fired, but nobody, including the shotgun-wielding shooter, is wounded. The president continues to take part in a routine with Oz the Mentalist while people shout, "Get down," and plates crash to the ground. J.D. Vance, not Trump, is taken first from the stage, and the president apparently either falls or stops to inspect what is going on. Law enforcement have so little clue about what is going on that about an hour after Trump and his cabinet have fled, an announcement is made. Could any members of Congress come to the stage? While officers wander the tables asking if anyone has seen any representatives or senators. The president musters a press conference, laughs, and jokes at what has happened, and his base, in apparently perfect lockstep, amplifies his demand for a ballroom, all within 2.5 hours of the shooting. And the Secret Service is revealed to have given the event a lower security classification than similar events where a president and much of the line of succession are all in one place, even though it is taking place in a hotel where a president was previously almost assassinated. And by the way, that assassination attempt that they name right there was on Ronald Reagan. So let's get into a few of these conspiracy theories, some of the more compelling theories that the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting wasn't as it seemed. First is that claim towards the end of part of the article I just read. All MAGA influencers within a couple hours of the shooting started talking about the need for Trump's ballroom. What was also fishy was that right in the response to the shooting, the ballroom was elevated to the level of a national security concern by the DOJ, which counteracted a halt created by a judge on the ballroom. And believe me, all of these like MAGA type influencers seemed really in lockstep. Like, you know, those clips that always become viral that show a bunch of news stations across the nation basically saying the exact same thing on a topic, and you kind of lay over all their voices, and again, they're saying the exact same thing. That's basically what it felt like for all these MAGA influencers about the ballroom. So to have that level of like operational awareness and togetherness about this suggests there was some sort of pre-planning. There's also this Oz Perlman clip from the Joe Rogan Experience making the rounds. I'll show that to you right now.
The last number's the biggest, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm showing this to you. Is there a camera behind me? I don't want to make sure. I'm only going to show it to you. It's not 2020. How'd I do, Joe? Is that your ATM PIN code?
Yeah. That's weird.
This is basically where we get the idea that Israel was involved in whatever happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Oz Perlman himself, who was the headliner that night, is actually an Israeli American. And the reason that clip from the Joe Rogan Experience is making the rounds is because people think that Oz Perlman guessing the ATM PIN number of Joe Rogan was almost like a threat to him for his anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian sentiments over the past couple of years. Or even more cynically, that Oz Perlman, through some mechanism, had access to Israeli software that was able to glean Joe Rogan's PIN number from his financial activities. And it's also the imagery of Oz Perlman being at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, you know, doing this magic trick while this event is going down. It kind of makes it seem like whatever happened at the dinner itself was the magic trick. So there's those optics that are really hard to ignore. And then there's this clip making the rounds of Cole Allen busting through a door in a hallway, you know, to make it to the security perimeter. And it almost makes it look like the security or the Secret Service was pulling the dog back to prevent the dog from finding Cole Allen. So to be honest, I don't even have that much commentary on this particular clip because this one could be any number of factors from, you know, the individual being nervous to ineptness, anything in between. But just like the Oz Perlman situation, it's not great optics, for sure. And finally, there's this clip from Caroline Leavitt.
He is ready to rumble. I will tell you, this speech tonight will be classic Donald J. Trump. It'll be funny. It'll be entertaining. There will be some shots fired tonight in the room. So everyone should tune in. It's going to be really great. I'm looking forward to hearing it.
And he put all that together, and it makes everything look eerie, to say the least. So our first theory of the case is that Trump used or staged the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting to essentially elevate the ballroom to a level of national security so that he could get it to the finish line. And the second one is that Israel was basically sending a warning shot to Donald Trump once again for any discrepancies or disagreements between himself and the state of Israel. And if you believe that Israel had anything to do with the Butler, Pennsylvania shooting, then you're definitely likely to fall into this category that, you know, Oz Perlman being an Israeli American and that clip from the Joe Rogan Experience, you're probably more likely to think that it's that way in this case as well. But here's the main point that I want to make. As I talk to all the people in my life, you know, family, friends, people at work, it seemed like they were very willing to believe that something fishy had happened at the dinner, that there was a conspiracy afoot. But the main thing they said to me was that, frankly, they didn't give a shit. And much like the idea of locking ourselves down for another summer, for another virus, there's just some fatigue that is set in at this point. When people are feeling all this pain at the gas pump, when they're worried about AI eventually taking their jobs and worried about just 1,000 things that are going on, the Iran war, people don't have time to worry if the White House Correspondents Dinner shooting was a conspiracy or not. They admit that, it's probably the case that it was a conspiracy, but frankly, there's just no time to care. There's complete fatigue, exhaustion about hearing about yet another conspiracy theory when all the ones that we've been hearing for at least the past decade, none of those have even been resolved yet. And even though I made a pretty compelling case that there's something fishy going on here, here's some of the reasons why it's probably not a conspiracy in the first place. Why would you engage in a conspiracy that makes the Secret Service itself look weak and have Trump stumbling to the ground as he exits, something which a man who's so obsessed with optics would probably care a lot for? He must have hated that situation. I've also always thought that the idea of people revealing things that are about to happen, especially on national television, is just kind of ridiculous, and it doesn't particularly sway me, especially the Caroline Leavitt comments. We can all probably tell that she was talking about verbal shots being fired. Vance getting off the stage before Donald Trump is probably more of a reflection of the fact that he's physically fit enough to get himself off the stage quite fast, whereas Trump would need a little bit of attending to. And in a country where violence is so revered and, all the arguments you've probably heard many times over, this type of shit is just bound to happen at some point, especially when security concerns continue to plague the Secret Service. I will say that the one part of the story that continues to kind of unsettle me personally is the fact that Trump continues to come to the defense of the same Secret Service that keeps letting him down security-wise. In the example of the almost shooting that just happened, the Secret Service claims that Cole Allen barely making it past the security perimeter constitutes a sign of a job well done. And while it's crazy to think that someone could have gotten past the perimeter with a gun in the first place at an event like this, Trump has not said anything to disparage the Secret Service. In fact, he seems time and time again eager to defend them, and my main question is definitely why. So at the end of the day, there's just too many damn things to focus on. If you need a Hantavirus to shift the focus from the Iran war and the Epstein files, I think that gas prices and just, the ass whooping that life is in 2026 have already done as best a job as you can possibly imagine. So I just truly think that nobody cares. It was fun to talk about for a day or two, but just 12 days later and almost nobody gives a shit. It's just a talking point that Fox News can use to bash people over the head that try to vilify the president. The general apathy towards the idea that this was all a staged event for a ballroom or a warning shot from Israel, this jadedness has just come from a decade of having conspiracy theories hurled at us from every single direction. And at some point, the fatigue just sets in.